Hello everyone, this is Riccardo Masini and today we're back to the gaming table and I want to show you a simple solo method to play Combat Commander in solitaire mode. Just to begin with, I really hate bots, diagrams, artificial intelligence, and so on. All these systems are very nice, very detailed, very good, but for me they distract me too much from the game. So usually to play games in solitaire, I prefer much simpler methods that that ask me to play to the best of my ability, or both players, but also they keep down the hidden information problem for games that are in any way, in some ways, card driven. So we have the problems of playing with cards that should be hidden but they are not, and so we know cards that really we should not really know. This method, which is very simple, very easy, and is still experimental, well, I put this method, a file about this method, on BGG, on Bog and Geek, so you can find it there and give me your opinions, your impressions, your advice. Some people already gave me their advice, their opinions. I already changed the system. I refined some points in the system, and I am in the process of refining them even more. So every opinion, advice is very much appreciated to get a better system. So this is a system that you can find on the Combat Commander Europe page on BGG, and I'm putting you the link to the file in the description of the video. So the system starts from two sources of inspiration. The first one is the excellent solo method for card-driven games by Stuka Joe, of course, but that system, that method does not work very well with Combat Commander, which has very precise and peculiar mechanics, game mechanics and dynamics. So I took inspiration from the method of another board game geek user, Fardosh. I hope I am pronouncing it right. And that method asks you essentially that whenever, especially the inactive player, uses a card, the entire hand of the player has to be reshuffled, and then other cards dealt with face down so that you do not know them, which is very good for Fog of War, to leave you in doubt of what the inactive player can or cannot do. But takes out the hand management element, the hand management aspect that for me is one of the key aspects of the Combat Commander series. So trying to build a better hand turn by turn and not using some cards because you are keeping them for when you will really need them. So to overcome this problem, I used another concept. The general concept is you know which cards the inactive player has, and can possibly use in reaction, but you do not know if the inactive player will actually use them. So let's see it in practice so that it will be much clearer. And please take a look to the file I posted on Bog and Geek. So let's say this is a very hypothetical situation. We have the German player, which was the active player. His turn is over, so it takes two cards, refills his hand as usual. Those two cards are hidden, are kept face down, and now the American player is the active player. He has his hand of cards already on the table. He decides, he has his cards and decides that he likes to move his unit. So he plays a move card, here it is, and okay, for activate those units. Now the German player will flip his cards, turn them face up, and we'll see what we have. We already knew that the German player had one fire card, so he could make an opportunity fire as a reaction. Now we see that he has two opportunity fire cards. But we do not know if, as American players, as the American player, we do not know if the German player will actually use them, and the way where we will see if he uses those cards or not is by using dice, a very secret object, very something that we have never seen before. Use some simple dice. Every die is associated to a specific possible reaction card. This reaction mechanics works for opportunity fire, but also for all the other possible reactions in Combat Commander, which can be mines and whatever you have in your hand. Combat Commander is actually unpredictable in this regard. So we roll a die for each possible card, and for each card that we could use possibly as a reaction, and that card could be activated only if we get an even result on the dice, 2, 4, or 6. If we get an odd result, 1, 3, or 5, that card is not activated. We can try to activate that again, but for that single moment it is not activated. So what happens? It happens that the American player moves his unit here in the open, and so we have two possible reactions with two cards for each of them. Black die is the first card, white die is the second card. We roll them, we see what we get. Okay, we roll the 6 and the 1. This card cannot be used, it is an odd number. This card can be used, so the German inactive player can use that, and he decides to do that as opportunity fire. I put a little sub rule. In Combat Commander you can use other cards, where it is, oh, here it is, other cards to modify an order, as in fire, opportunity fire. You can use crossfire to get a bonus. So if you want, you can associate that card. This is the best of your judgment. Automatically, you do not need other die rolls. You can add it automatically to an active reaction card. Let's say that he plays that card, and so he does his opportunity fire. But let's say that the first roll was 3 and 1, so he could not activate one of those two cards for reactions, and so the American player, well, he will not say, haha, he could not activate, so I can go whenever I want. No. In the next move, because in the same activation, the German player will roll again for both of those cards. They are still available, and bam, now it does. With this card, now it does is opportunity fire. That's it. Of course, if you use a card in reaction for an opportunity fire or in reaction, in general, you discard that card and you cannot use it anymore. That's it. That's the general reaction procedure. There is a particular rule for a situation like that. What happens if we are the American active player and we see the hand, the German hand, and the German inactive hand is like that? No fire cards. We are still there. So theoretically, we should know that the German will not do any opportunity fire because he has no cards, and he has no fire cards in his hand. Well, in that case, I inserted a special variant, a special rule, that the German player can still try to activate, to get an emergency upfire, just for upfire, just to keep some of that uncertainty in the system, which is, for me, it is very, very important in Combat Commander. So what happens is, the American moves in the open, the German rolls his die, and if he gets, second time, also in the Italian video I got this, wow, and if he gets a 6, German inactive player, virtual player is very lucky tonight, if he gets a 6, well, he can use one of his cards as if it was a fire card, so beginning an opportunity fire action. Of course, he cannot use cards that normally he will not be able to use, that is, command confusion cards. He cannot use them for this emergency upfire, or artillery request cards if he has no radio. And so let's say that he uses this recover card as a fire card and gets his opportunity fire. However, this rule is a bit more limited than the normal reaction mechanic, and that is if you get a success, if you get an emergency upfire, you cannot try again and again to get other emergency upfires during your turn. This is just one per turn per inactive player, just one time. So use it well. Again, the best of your judgment. However, if you do not get, if you do 1 to 5, let's say it does 5, another limitation is that you cannot try to activate that again during that same activation. It will be a bit too powerful. So you can try to get another opportunity fire for another enemy activation during the same turn. This activation is over, you did not do any opportunity fire, but then the American player activates, makes another activation, uses another move card, and so you can try again if you didn't get an emergency opportunity fire the first time. And that is the emergency procedure. Another problem and another issue with playing Combat Commander Solitaire is when you have that situation, melee, hand-to-hand combat, and especially these cards, ambush cards. Why? Because, as every Combat Commander player knows, you usually do not get into melee, into hand-to-hand fighting, into close combat without an ambush card, but if, as an active player, but as an inactive player, if you have an ambush card in your hand, you usually use them. You use that card because it is too precious. So because at the beginning of melee, your opponent must break one of his participating units. So as you see, it is quite important. So having the inactive player use that card in reaction only with one die, if he gets an even result, it seemed a bit too little for me. It was, if I have an ambush card and I am assaulted in hand-to-hand combat, in close combat, I tend to use that. So, as an exception, when a melee occurs and you are in the inactive player has ambush cards, well, for each of those cards he rolls two dice, and that card activates if even just one of those dice is an even number. So in that case, 6 and 3, that ambush is activated. If the inactive player gets something like this, 5 and 3, that card is not activated. Of course, you roll 2 dice for each of the ambush cards you have in your hand. Once again, you are a bit. It is a bit more probable that the inactive player will use that ambush card but not certain. So you can still hope as the active player that it doesn't use that. As an optional rule, I am still experimenting with that. If I find myself as an active player in that situation, so without any ambush card in my hand, I am, well, I'm evaluating an option rule that you can do the emergency reaction activation as with op5. So you roll a die, if you get a 6 you can use any card as if it was an ambush card. A bit powerful, I know, but this keeps me in the uncertainty of close combat, and the typical uncertainty of close combat in combat commanders. Another option rule, well, for Tosh system has that rule. Other solitaire methods I've seen have that rule, that is about objectives. Secret objectives are revealed only at the end of the play, including for the owning player. So even the player who owns a secret objective does not know what that secret objective is. Because why? Because there's just one player. If I have a secret objective for the American and I reveal that, the German player, myself again, knows that objective. I like that rule. This rule has the advantages and disadvantages. The main advantage is that without knowing the objective, I keep the fog of war, and so the battle is not scripted, because if I know all the objectives, the battle becomes really very scripted. And it is one of the other key aspects of Combat Commander, that sometimes you are playing against an enemy but you do not know his own objectives. However, in that way, if I play with totally secret objectives, well, I have problems as the active player, as the owning player, because I could be fighting and devising a strategy that becomes totally useless, because in reality my objective was another objective altogether, or even worse, I get to win a match without having done anything, because just by chance I control a single objective that becomes over important for this scenario and gives me a lot of points. And that is for me that is a terrible way to win, because I did not do anything to get that victory, and it seems to me that I am stealing the victory, but also I'm missing the point of the game. That the point of the game is to struggle towards an objective, not to get that objective out of thin air because wow, I was lucky, so I won because I held that bridge that I really did not know before that I had to to get and occupy. And also my opponent, the other player, doesn't know, so he does not do anything to defend that bridge. So it is up to you. This is up to your choice. However, this is my method. I'm still refining it. At the moment I found a bit of a problem with ambush cards. The first half of the file is in English, the second half is in Italian, for all of my friends in Italy and all around the world to get that file, to understand it and give me their impressions. I found that probably 4 language problems. The ambush cards I have modified it a bit. I inserted a possibility for the inactive player that did not work at all with the rules as written, so probably for language problems. Sometimes I'm writing in English, sometimes I'm writing in Italian, and I'm making mistakes in both of those languages with my house rules. That happens. However, the file is there. Once again, it is experimental. Please give me your impressions, opinions, advice, and also because I know quite well the Combat Commander system, but I'm not a total expert of Combat Commander. There are much more expert players of Combat Commander out there, and if any one of them is seeing this video, please give me your impressions, your opinions, to refine the system. The goal of the system is to have fun in playing a Command Commander by yourself, in learning the rules if you are new to the system, and in learning the scenarios, because it is very important. Combat Commander is totally scenario driven, and so it can be very useful to know well a scenario, a terrain, a map, the conditions before a tournament or even a casual play with your friends. But it is quite better to know the system very well, and most of all to have fun with the system even when you have no direct opponent available. That was my own method for playing Combat Commander in Solitaire. I hope you appreciate it. I hope it can be useful to everybody who is watching this video, and who will watch this video. So that's it for this episode. See you next time. See you around. Ciao.